Good day, my name is Jax and welcome to Bellucci Studios Tech Talk. In today's Tech Talk, we are going to be looking at the March 8th event that Apple held this year to launch some new products. So right off the bat, I would like to say that there were some announcements that were meh. Then there were other announcements that I thought, were kind of cool. And then there were announcements that really just blew my socks off. So let's get into it. Okay, so the announcements that I'm not really too bothered about are Apple TV Plus. So there's a whole bunch of new series and shows coming to Apple TV. Yeah. And then another cool thing, if you are into baseball, is that there will now be Friday Night Baseball, two shows that are exclusive to Apple TV Plus. Alright, moving right along then. The next thing is the announcements that go from, well, kinda cool to pretty cool. And these are that the iPhone 13 now comes with two additional colors. Yeah, two different shades, of green. Fantastic. And then something that I think this next announcement was kind of it's a mixed bag, because iPhone SE still holds the iPhone 8. The new version of iPhone SE will still be the same vein as the iPhone 8 that we've now moved from iPhone 8 to iPhone 13. So it's these 5 iterations of iPhone that has come around, and Apple is still making use of the iPhone 8 for the iPhone SE. Now, in terms of the new improvements to the iPhone SE, I think those are really noteworthy. The A15 Bionic chip that is found in the iPhone 13 now also is found in the new iPhone SE. Yeah, Apple following that good old trusted methodology, which is it's good. It's good. The only thing that I think about this announcement that might not be so good is, if you think about, most of us use our phones to browse the web. You want to go and have a quick search for something, don't want to pull out the laptop, don't want to pull out the iPad. You have your phone with you, you just want to quickly go in, and then you get onto some websites and there's some stuff in the header, there's some stuff in the footer, and it gives you like that much real estate on the iPhone 8 to actually view whatever you want to view. Now, not all web pages are like that, but there are quite a few, and this is a growing trend, especially with the web pages that I frequent. So this would be things like the Apple iStore, for instance. If you go and you have a look using an iPhone 8, you'll find that there's a whole bunch of stuff on the top, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the bottom, and you can't get rid of it. There's just no way around it. So you just have like that little space that you gotta peep through, and hopefully you see everything that you need to see. So what we need is we need a little bit more real estate. So there's a black bar on the top and there's a black bar at the bottom of the iPhone that is not used. I think we need to start making use of that in the iPhone SE. So Apple, hopefully in the next iteration, maybe we can extend that screen area a little bit, maybe make it the same as the iPhone 12 or the iPhone 13 mini, and just take away a whole bunch of options. I think iPhone SE users will appreciate that a little bit more. It's because of that kind of thinking that I switched to the iPhone 12. Maybe that's what Apple is hoping for, but it's not a good fit. Other good things that have come to the iPhone SE is 5G, and then of course all of those non iPhone Pro features of the iPhone 30 have made it now down to the iPhone SE. So mixed bag there for me. I'm don't really know how to feel about the new iPhone SE. It still has the Touch ID, which is a cool feature. I still miss it on my iPhone 12. And yes, I am making use of the iPhone 12, not the iPhone 13. I don't upgrade each and every time. Yes, yeah, budget constraints and stuff like that. And then something else, then now the coolest of the cool announcements that were made is with regards to the iPad Air refresh. And iPad Air now also comes with, you guessed it, the M1 silicone, which I think that's really cool. I find myself now sitting with the iPad mini and I'm like, should I maybe have it waited just a little bit and then possibly now I've had gotten the iPad Air? Maybe. But I'm still loving the iPad mini. I just think that what they're doing now with the iPad, introducing the M1 chip into the iPad Air, I think that was a really smart move. Again, knocking all of the competition out of the water. There's obviously going to be some major differences between the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, and all of those Pro features have not carried down to the iPad Air. The iPad Air will still be the iPad Air with the M1 chip. Then one other thing to note, there's no Thunderbolt connector on the iPad Air. So unlike the iPad Pro has the Thunderbolt. The iPad Air with the M1 chip has USB-C 10 gigabit per second. So that's USB 3 Gen 2. So there are a lot of differences between the iPad Pro and the iPad Air, and if you don't need all of those Pro features, then I think the iPad Air is a really good value for money proposition. And then also something that's cool about the fact that they've just upgraded the chip inside the iPad Air is that you will be able to use all of your accessories. If you do have an iPad Air, the previous generation or the current generation, and you want to upgrade to the new iPad Air with the M1 chip, you will be able to use all of your accessories on this iPad Air device, which I think is also another smart move by Apple. And then we also have 5G on the iPad Air. There's a whole bunch of other things that I'm not going to get into in this video that are now also found on the iPad Air. And now we get to the pièce de résistance of this particular evening. And I will start with the last thing that they mentioned, which is the Studio Display. Apple's Pro Display XDR, I think, was a really, and is still a really brilliant monitor. But $4,000, or approximately anywhere between 60 to 90,000 rand I'm not prepared to pay that for a display, not at this stage, because my budget does not cater for that much for a display. I'm sorry, it just wouldn't happen. However, the Studio Display does bring a lot of the features that we have in the Pro Display XDR at a lower price point. Of course, you don't have the HDR, and there's a whole bunch of things that you don't have, but what you do have is substantial enough that I would think possibly, I'm not saying I'm going to, but possibly in the next six months to a year, I could budget for the Studio Display. It does actually make sense. The reason why I've never thought about the Pro Display or an Apple display before, like the Pro Display XDR, aside from the high cost, is that the processors within the Apple devices have never been powerful enough for me to seriously consider getting the display. But with what they have announced now, I am actually seriously considering the Studio Display, and possibly thinking about, for a much later time when my budget has seriously exploded, possibly getting the Pro Display XDR. Now the reason for that is that these displays, I think, will just work a lot better with the well, these more high powered Apple devices, even with MacBook Pro or the M1 MacBook Air, I think that these displays would be a much better fit than anything else on the market. Yeah, with the new Apple Silicon and the performance benefits that comes with this Apple, with the Apple Silicon, with these Apple chips, it's causing me to rethink what I want and need in a display. So this new studio display seems, and I mean, for $1,600, which I think it will probably translate to about close on to 30,000 rand, between 25 to 30,000 rand. I think that it is quite expensive. That is a lot of money for a South African, a lot of money, but it is something that I am thinking about, so may or may not come to the channel. Right, then we have the pièce de résistance, and that is the M1 Ultra chip. Now I've got the MacBook Pro 14-inch with the M1 Pro base model processor, and I'm blown away by it. I mean, like, I'm so impressed with this thing that I've stopped using my desktop machine, and my desktop machine is no slouch. It's an 8-core Xeon processor with a GTX 950 graphics display. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM, which I've been thinking of upgrading for a long time. I just have never had the need to upgrade it. There's a whole bunch of other things that it has, and I've always viewed that as the most powerful computer that I have, and now I've got a laptop that's just as powerful than that and uses much less power. Then I look at the M1 Ultra and I think to myself, oh my goodness, you have two M1 Max processors connected via a die-to-die interconnect, which allows Mac OS to see and all of the applications that run on Mac OS to see that as one processor, and that is amazing to me. So what exactly are the specs briefly? So you have a 20-core CPU that has 16 high performance cores and 4 high efficiency cores. You have 64 core GPU. Oh my goodness. And then you've got 32 core neural engine. My oh my, that sounds to me like that would be so sweet to get. That is really, I'm looking at that and I'm like, that's sweet. That's really sweet. I'm blown away by this, and I look at these specs and this is like, it's a lot better than what I have, and I'm thinking big, borrow, possibly even steal. You know, I need to make some sort of plan, but I looked at the prices as well, and it's outside of my budget for now, so I will live vicariously through all of the reviews and all of the reviewers that will review this thing. So that M1 Ultra chip, by the way, prepared the way for the next thing, which is the Mac Studio. This is a new product that Apple is releasing, the Mac Studio. Comes in two configurations. You can either order it with the M1 Max or the M1 Ultra. Yeah. What does this thing look like? Well, it's 7.7 inches by 7.7 inches, and then it's 3.7 inches high. Most of that space is for I think about 50% of the volume of this Mac Studio is dedicated to the cooling system, which tells me that under the right conditions, that thing can get pretty hot, and it's got some serious cooling power there to expel all of that heat that could potentially be generated. Then let's talk about the connectivity on this device. 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports. I'm jealous. I'm so jealous. 10 gigabit Ethernet, 2 USB-A's, an HDMI port, and a audio jack on the back of this device. And this audio jack can be used for either studio grade earphones or studio monitors that have their own amplifiers in them. That's for me. This thing was designed for me. This needs to come and sit on my desk. I need that thing here. Yeah. Then of course that's not the whole story. The story gets a little bit better. If you get the M1 Max processor with the Mac Studio, then you have USB-C, 2 USB-C ports in the front, 10 gigabits per second transfer rate. So that's USB 3.2 Gen 2. And then if you order it with the M1 Ultra, then you get an additional 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports on the front. Sorry, I just need to take a moment to compose myself, because this is as amazing. This is really sad for me, because I really don't think that this thing is gonna make it to my studio. It also has an SD card slot in the front, if you know. Yeah, so for those who need that kind of thing, that would be amazing. So I'm looking at this and I think to myself, for the things that I'm doing and the things that I want to do, this is perfect. This is the machine that I need, either with the M1 Max or with the M1 Ultra. The M1 Ultra would be the best option. This is a monster. This is an absolute beast of a machine. And if my M1 Pro is anything to go by, this is the one I want. Alright, so the performance on this device, you know, I don't know how many people know the technicalities behind what's going on and why Apple can actually do this. One of the reasons why Apple Silicon is able to have this higher performance with less power and generating less heat is that the M1 Silicon uses what they call reduced instruction set computing. So let's say that you want to run a video editor on Mac OS, right? If you have an Intel chip, let's say that the Intel chip to do the exact same work requires 100 instructions per second. So that 100 instructions per second requires a certain amount of energy, and that will result in a certain amount of heat being generated. But the Apple Silicon uses a reduced instruction set computing, which means that it uses less instructions per second in order to achieve the exact same body of work or the exact same unit of work. So what will happen is then that the Intel chip uses, let's say, 100 instructions to perform that unit of work. The Apple Silicon might require maybe a third of those instructions. So a third of the instructions requires a third of the power, which results in a third of the amount of heat generated. So that is why when you look at these curves, that performance charts that Intel or that Apple comes up with, they have this thing where this is the maximum performance that we get with this is the maximum amount of power that we use, and this is the maximum amount of heat. And then if you look at the Intel chip goes all the way to the North Pole in order to achieve the exact same thing that we do in a very short amount of time. So that's why you have those huge differences in the charts where they show this is the amount of heat, this is the amount of power, but Intel Silicon just uses way more. And that's why they can get away with not having very accurate charts in their presentations, because, well, there's nothing limiting them from doing that, because they're just graphically showing you what the differences are between these different technologies. And it's quite impressive what they have been able to do. Not generating a lot of heat, not using a lot of power, and having tremendous amounts of performance. So for me, I don't mind the charts that Apple uses because they are representative of the performance, the representative of the amount of heat. They don't need to be 100%, gigahertz for gigahertz, and having all of those very technical drawings and technical charts. To me, that doesn't really matter because I understand the difference between RISC and the kind of processes that Intel uses. Okay, so this has been a really this has been a really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's been a experience. This presentation that Apple did really shows the direction in which they're going, and if they continue in this direction, then it doesn't matter what a lot of the reviewers say. Ultimately, for me, what I've seen, what I've experienced, leads me to believe that I might essentially be done with the Intel ecosystem, with Windows, because Apple is really, they are providing me with what I need at a decent price point, and yeah, it's really Road Ahead to me looks really fantastic, and it looks like I might be switching from being a all out, whatever Apple can do, Intel can do kind of guy. I'm switching now to, Intel is gonna have to work really hard to beat Apple. I mean, to really beat them, and not with regards to Geekbench and all of these test bench kind of scenarios, but with regards to real world scenarios, looking at the things that I've done and the amount of time it takes me to do it now on this machine versus on the machine that's my desktop machine. Apple has really, they've changed the game. I believe they've changed the game. And that is where I will leave it today. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please do consider subscribing, liking the video, sharing it as far and as wide as you possibly can. And I will catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.